She's so smart, but she's so shy. That's what Mrs. Dawns told me in an email when she described Sarai, a new 5th grade student in her building who had just moved from Edo State, Nigeria to Central Texas. I developed a relationship with Mrs. Dawns the year before through a university and literacy partnership at her elementary school. And she had done a number of things to get Sarai to open up and to become more social. For instance, she invited the author of the Black Panther to speak at their school, and she strategically sat Sarai in the front row so that she could connect with aspects of African culture. And she planned a family night so that many families like Sarai could be in the school building and connect around their stories of immigration. And then finally, she reached out to me, a first-generation Nigerian and African-American woman, to hopefully mentor her and get her to open up a little bit more. I agreed. Over the next few months, Sarai and I met every Friday in her library during her lunch hour. And our mentor and mentee experience was anchored in a text by Maria Budos, "Tell Us We're Home." It's a beautiful story that tells the narrative of 3 girls who immigrated from Mexico, Trinidad and Tobago, and Slovakia to New Jersey. And as Sarai and I dive deeper into the text, sharing the similarities between their experiences and hers, we also delve deeper into our experience and our relationship. So much that on the last day, Sarai came into the library, not just with her book, not just with her lunch, but with a slice of pizza for me. It was indicative of the bond that we had developed over that short amount of time. And I was gracious and filled with so much gratitude for it. So I reached out to her parents and asked if I could keep in touch. The next week, I met with her parents at a coffee shop. And her mother, Mrs. Imasuen, and I, we sat across the table from each other. And I asked her, "So, Mrs. Imasuen, has Sarai always been this shy?" And she looked at me and she let out a laughter from the depth of her belly. And she said, "Ha, ha, ha, Sarai, shy? She's far from shy." In fact, she told me that all 4 of her children had become less talkative, less social, ever since they moved from Nigeria to the United States. She said it was because they realized how their Nigerian English sounded so different from their classmates' American US English. And while Nigeria is home to over 500 languages, English is its official language because of the British colonization that ended in 1960. So the differences in their Englishes is what caused her children to be more silent. Still, Mrs. Imasuen encouraged her children that with time, they would become more used to the different speaking styles in the school building. My conversation with Mrs. Imasuen drew my attention to a larger issue: how schools are filled with narrow and harmful beliefs that silence not just African youth's languages, but also their identities. It's an experience that I was so familiar with as a young girl growing up in Detroit, Michigan, and New York City. It was also the experiences of many of my West African students in Harlem, New York. Proudly African outside of school, on social media, at home, quietly African, and in many cases, invisibly African at school. I was so intrigued by all the similarities across all of our experiences that I desired to get to know more of the Nigerian youth in the community. So Mrs. Imasuen connected me with more Nigerian families. And as I developed a relationship with them, I was able to get to know them more, and I invited them to partner with me on a research project. They agreed. All 6 youth, 3 boys, 3 girls. The research project was anchored in one overarching question: what happens to Nigerian youth's identities, languages, and literacies when they move to the United States? This question was especially important because of the role that race plays in the United States, and because over the last 5 decades, so many African youth had enrolled in US schools at unparalleled rates. And as I spent more time with the youth, they welcomed me into their families so much that they didn't call me Lakeya, they called me by my Nigerian name, ERA. And as I had conversations with their literacy teachers, I learned so many things. But there was one thing in particular that stuck out to me. And that was, unfortunately, all 6 of the youth had experienced some form of linguistic discrimination against their accent in Nigerian English. However, there was one space in each of their schools where they felt welcomed enough to participate that didn't feel like it was laced with linguistic discrimination, and that was through the arts. Dance, creative writing, music, visual arts, these were all the spaces where the youth came alive and were able to express themselves. But this is so much deeper than opening space for African multilingual youth to participate in school spaces, this is about something deeper. It's about the social and emotional well-being. Because when arts are integrated into the schools, it helps to alleviate the isolation associated with immigration. It helps students to form and build new friendships. It helps them to express their identities beyond who the United States says that they are. It's so deep. Now, I know that US schools have a long way to go when it comes to opening space for multilingualism, especially as it relates to Black and African multilingual youth. And the story of the 6 youth that I partner with is not the story of all Nigerian youth. However, there's one way that we can start to open space for African and all youth to participate in school, and that is through the arts. When we do that, we open space for them to showcase who they are socially, emotionally, mentally, creatively, not just in this generation, but especially in the ones beyond. Thank you so much.